Welcome to Study Loop.
Myasthenia gravis, which is an autoimmune disease that initially presents with muscle weakness and can progress to complete impairment of muscle movement. So the molecular mechanism by which this autoimmune disease happens is we have a neuromuscular junction, which is basically the meeting of a nerve and muscle tissue that can create the contraction of muscle tissue. So basically, signaling molecules known as acetylcholine bind to the acetylcholine receptors found on muscles, which trigger an action potential and ultimately muscle contraction. What happens in myasthenia gravis patients is that antibodies are produced that block these receptors and thus prevent acetylcholine from properly binding to the receptors, which prevents muscle contractions and lead to muscle weakness and impairment of muscle movement. So let's see which statement best describes this molecular mechanism. A states that the body produces antibodies against nerve cells, which prevents the nerve cells from releasing acetylcholine during signal transmission. So no, acetylcholine is still produced regardless. It's just that the acetylcholine molecules can't properly bind to the receptors. B states that the body produces antibodies against acetylcholine, which prevents acetylcholine from transmitting signals. No, it's not. The antibodies aren't aren't trying to like counter the effects of or bind to acetylcholine. They're binding to receptors. Um, so it's not antibodies against acetylcholine. C states that the body produces antibodies against receptors in muscle. So true, which prevents acetylcholine from binding and completing nerve signal transmission. Yes, that is true. So that sounds like the correct answer. And D states that the body produces antibodies against acetylcholine. So once again, that's incorrect. So we can therefore say that the correct molecular mechanism by which myasthenia gravis occurs is when the body produces antibodies against receptors in muscle, which prevents acetylcholine from binding and completing nerve signal